Thanks for listening to the AZ12 podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by the great Eric Cohen making his debut. Eric, before we get started here, I never want to tell people who somebody else is because I always mess that up. My ADHD goes crazy on stuff like that. Eric, you tell people who don't know, give a little bit of a background about yourself.
Well, Mike, first of all, glad to be on with you on this podcast. You and Sheer have done a great job and getting this going. You guys are crushing it. You are the place to get Arizona Wildcats news. And that's where I get my news, from listening to you guys and reading the message board with you and Sheer. So first of all, I appreciate all that you guys do. I am the co-host of a podcast called Wildcat Country. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. I appreciate those of you who have heard of us and tuned into myself and Shane Dale before. I appreciate that. And I also, for my day job, I work for a company called Sportsline, which is owned by the same parent company as 24/7 Sports, which Sheer obviously works for, and I focus on sports betting. So that's kind of my angle there, but I love to talk Wildcat sports. My thing to do, you give out all the news, Mike, and I'm just kind of like, I do it, as I told you off air, for therapy purpose. This is my therapy when I go into a podcast to react to everything. So it's fun to finally be on with you and talk about everything.
Well, what's fun about this, too, is like I always tell people, I'm a nerd with a microphone. Believe it or not, Eric, I know this might be hard to believe. I did not play Division I basketball. So when people
Come on now.
Yeah, I know. But when people are like, oh, well, why should I take you seriously? Don't. It's just my opinion. You don't have to. We're just going to have some fun here. But Eric, I think one of my biggest pet peeves this entire season was, and again, I get that he's far from perfect, was the people, well, we don't know that if Tommy Lloyd really a good coach. Is he, starting out 4-5? Can he really recruit? This team looks like it's kind of flat. And I said this from day one. Listen, you could have some frustrations for sure, but you don't win the amount of games he was won in 3 seasons without being good. Like Kevin O'Neal ain't doing that.
No, that's fair. Okay, fine. So KO's not winning that many games. Tommy's a good coach. We were all bashing him after the UCLA game because I thought it was gross negligence down the stretch, what we saw in that game. However, if you would have told me Arizona's going to go, 12-1 since then? Right. I mean, this has to be one of the great turnarounds in Arizona basketball history. I mean, would you agree with that?
Because here's the thing, is that the criticisms were valid. I mean, you looked at it, the team looked lost. It didn't look like, and I was very critical of it. The team looked lost, but overall, the guy knows still what he's doing. He is and we're going to get to kind of the roster and the matchups and everything, but what were your expectations going into this season, Eric, and where are we now in your opinion?
So I would have said Sweet 16 is about right, similar to where we got last year. I mean, last year I felt like was higher than this year. There were too many unknowns. I mean, losing Balo, losing Pella, Keisha, there was a lot of Del Orso and Townsend. I mean, I read what you say about Townsend, and we agree 100% on that. It shouldn't play. It should be Carter Bryant all the time, but that's for another story.
Right.
So I thought, okay, listen, you make the tournament. That's a must at Arizona. You get to the Sweet 16. I think we'd be semi-happy with that, right?
Right.
And then they're done. This team is, I'm done with them. They have 0 good non-conference wins. What did we say? I mean, what did you say when you launched this podcast? Like, you need to win 13 out of 20 games in the Big 12 to get in the tournament.
Right. Your margin for error was nothing.
None. And now they're 10-1, and they're tied atop with Houston. It's a stunning turnaround. I can't remember anything like it. Now, I don't know what the expectations are, Mike. I don't know, how realistically, how high do you think the ceiling is for this team?
I'm probably going to get beat up by some Arizona fans, but to me, there's clearly, I still have too many question marks to ever really put them in that Duke Auburn class. Yeah, it just, those two teams are just on a separate level. But I'll say this, what's intrigued me, and I get that I'm kind of hedging and copying out from your question, but what's intrigued me, Eric, though, is that this team's finding ways to win in a lot of ways that they didn't last year. Like, you look at it last year, if Caleb Love wasn't good against a good team, they weren't winning. That was just the way it is. The way they're kind of picking themselves up and everybody else is it leads me to believe that they could beat a variety of different teams, especially come March, because you've got different ways to win where I don't know in the past you necessarily had different ways to win, like say last year, for example.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What I've seen is the reason Arizona's playing so well right now, at least the last few games, these last 2 wins, because Caleb Love's taken over.
No doubt.
I mean, that's what. So period. Arizona, in my opinion, is going to go as far as Caleb Love goes. If Caleb Love goes on a heater like we've seen against ASU and BYU, I think Arizona could make the Elite Eight. I think if Caleb Love goes 3 of 19 or whatever he shot against Clemson, this is a team that's going to lose in the first round.
You don't want to see the one-legged threes from Caleb Love airballing the one-legged threes.
First, the thing about Caleb Love, he's one of those guys, and we all do it. You're like, bad shot. Oh wait, good shot. I mean, that's what I'm saying Saturday. But when he gets hot, and you've seen that leadership, I wonder if that shot. I said it on last week on my show, when he hit that shot against Iowa State, and they came back to win the game. You were going to see what would happen with Arizona. Is it an immediate boost, or are they going to fall flat? And against ASU for part of the game, I'm sitting there at whatever that dump arena is called. And,
oh, God, it's terrible.
I mean, that scoreboard's like when we were in college, when I was like, it's horrible. So as far as I'm concerned, like you're wondering what's going to happen with this team. And they, at the end of the game, they closed. And last night at the end of the game, they closed. That's what we weren't seeing from Arizona earlier in the year. Damn, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Now let's talk about Caleb. My whole thing with Caleb is this, and every now and then I think I make a good point, and if I do, I'm just going to beat it home because there aren't a lot of them. But I'm going to say this, Eric. I've always felt with Caleb Love that if his shot isn't falling, he should still be able to score. Because when you watch him, he's not as stiff. He can get to the basket. He can draw fouls. And I think we're seeing him start to do that. My biggest problem with him is because there's going to be games where he's not going to be hitting his three-point shot. But get into the paint. Get to the foul line. Cause fouls. I mean, there were 2 straight possessions in the second half where he didn't even, where he drove towards the middle of the court in the half-court set. Picked up 2 fouls on, do stuff like that because teams have to guard you up close. And I felt that he early on, it was just kind of, well, you know what? I'm just going to shoot it. If it doesn't go in, that's going to be the night. He's got to be able to diversify himself. And I've liked what I've seen from that in that regard.
Yeah, I do too. And I'll tell you, Shears made a really good point that he's on X the last few games is his defense. The last 3 games. I mean, where he has been a lockdown defender. The guy on Iowa State last week that he slowed down. Obviously against ASU, some of their key players, Sannon, to me, who would you rather have, Joson Sannon or Caleb Love? I think all of us right now, for a while, I'm sure we probably questioned it in like December, but right now, is there any doubt? Like I saw that guy on Saturday. I wasn't impressed.
I wasn't either. And here's the other thing too. I don't care. And I keep getting this argument from people. I don't care what some dude is. If some guy's a projected 2nd round pick and one isn't, that means nothing to me. That literally means nothing. Miles Simon was the 42nd pick in the draft and basically never played. Guess what? I'm going to take him over a lot of dudes that were drafted in the 1st round. That's just the way it is. I don't care about that argument. And Caleb's a grown man. I mean, the thing about it, too, is that I have a real soft spot for him because if you talk with any of the coaches, anyone around the program, they'll be like, listen, I know that he had a bad rep coming in here, but we haven't seen any of that. He's loved by his teammates. He's loved by us. He's been perfect. And guys like that are just kind of easy to root for. Now, you might not like some of his style of play. I get it. But I think he's a pretty easy guy to root for in that regard.
Well, I would agree with that as well. And now, after what he did last Monday night, he is a legend. I mean, that shot is going to be replayed over and over and over. It is now an iconic moment in Arizona basketball history. Like, you see the Miles Simon shot up at Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix against Cincinnati. You see, for as regular season moments go for Arizona basketball, it's Miles Simon shot.
Salim pull up against UCLA.
I was there for that game. That was my senior year. I was there for that game. Okay, yeah. I was behind. I remember being behind the basket for that game right when he hit that. So that's up there. The Derek Williams block, I was at that game, as I'm sure you were. Yep. And then obviously the game against Iowa State, which I wish I was at that game. Yeah. Hate these Monday night things. But I'll tell you what, those are like the 4 iconic moments. We will not forget Caleb Love, regardless of what happens with Arizona basketball the rest of the year.
You just won't. Now, let's talk a little bit about kind of the lineup that I think that really causes some problems. One guy that I was totally wrong on, Henry Vasar. Yeah. I did not see it. Eric, Henry's a monster. I mean, Henry, you start looking at Henry and you start wondering, is it like, I've gone from saying, I don't think this guy can play here to being, is he going to be in the NBA in 2 years? Like, his metamorphosis has been, that to me has been one of the surprises of the season, if not the surprise.
Well, I also want to say this, and I was thinking about this morning, and I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself. When you think about next year, with Vasar coming back now, who knows if Krivas is going to want to stay with Vasar emerging like this. So Vasar and Awaka, assuming that they stay, and Jaden Bradley and KJ Lewis And if Carter Bryant doesn't go pro, I mean, you add a Koa Peat or a Burries and or a Burries. I mean, how's that not a top 5 team in the country?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, even if you look at, let's just say, for example, let's just say you land one of the two. I obviously want to land both of them in Koa Peat but let's just say you land Burries. And you've got and let's say worst case scenario. I'm playing out worst case scenario just to show how good it can be.
Yeah.
If you've still got a perimeter next year going into the season of a senior Jaden Bradley, freshman Braden Burries, and a junior KJ Lewis, we're talking almost kind of worst case scenario there, all things considered. That's pretty good, Eric.
Well, and your boy, Delly's going to be back, even though he is what he is.
He is what he is, for sure.
I mean, Carter Bryant, what's going to happen? I mean, is he playing enough minutes to go pro? He probably might benefit from maybe a freshman to sophomore Derek Williams type jump if he's going to start for Arizona next year. I'm just throwing that out there.
I know, I totally agree. The thing that worries me about him is he's got such an easily projectable skill to the next level. Those are always the guy, because he can shoot the ball and he's going to be able to hopefully defend. I agree with you. If I'm the 23rd pick, I can make a lot more money coming back to be the 7th pick.
NIL too, Mike. I mean, how much money is Arizona going to have to pay him to stay? Is he going to get? In football, it's a different story. That's why if you're a quarterback and you're not going to go in the first round like Carson Beck, you stay and you make $4 or $5 million, something like that.
Right.
So, as far as Carter Bryant goes, I mean, he's going to have, I would assume, a 7-figure deal next year if he stays for Arizona. But man, I think about it, and I don't want to get ahead of myself as far as, we're still playing out the season. We're 10-1 in conference. I get it. Man, next year with this team, you add at least one of those two guys.
Right.
I'm going, holy crap.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about that. I want to get your take on something, but first, something that's up in your neck of the woods, though, Eric, as well. Baggins. Now, listen, you're in Scottsdale, right? Hanging out with the cool kids.
Hardly.
Yes, but, the cool kids are up in Scottsdale. It just depends on if you're hanging out with them or not, I guess. But here, 12 locations, though, my friends, and you get one in Scottsdale. But here's the deal. You got to use code AZ12. There was a lady that went there the other day who said, well, if we're not going to get credit, then I'm not going to use AZ12, or I'm not going to shop here or whatever. And then the owner told me, she's like, no, we'll just mark you down, because she was messing around with the app or whatever. So either way, you can do that. You can get a cookie. And again, you can get some very good sandwiches. Very, very good. Everybody go out there and get a Baggins today and tag me in it. I would very much appreciate that. We like a Baggins on this show. Back the bag. And let's see, what else we got? Green Valley Decorative Rock. Now, you might say, I'd like to get some rock in my front yard. It's not just rock they got. They've got pavers. They've got turf. And they deliver. If you got a ton of stuff, they will even deliver to you. Up to, I always mess this up. Up to Oracle, west to Marana, south to Nogales, east to Sierra Vista, Benson. I'll just say Benson. Yeah, check it out, though. Support Mike, and they have people in here. They have people in here in Tucson. They have a Tucson location. Go there and check it out. Green Valley Decorative Rock. Rock. Okay, now, Koa Peat. I know that this might sound like preparing for the possible jilted lover situation here. Let's just, if he goes to ASU over Arizona, I'll be honest with you, Eric. I don't want to be the guy that's like, I don't really want you anyway at that point. If you're going to that dumpster fire up at ASU to play with that, as opposed to coming here, that's just a different recruitment at that point. I don't know.
All right, so hold on. So I had before the game on Saturday, I was sitting with some friends, and one of them is an ASU booster, and so he's kind of explaining. Apparently, Koa's dad, I don't know the circumstance. There's some health issues there, and that if he were to stay at ASU, it could be related to that. Yeah. That was what my buddy, who's fairly plugged in with the athletic department up there, said. Now, I don't know any specifics on that. I rely on you and Sheer for all the news with as far as that goes. So I'm not going to be as upset if that's the case, right?
Right. That's fair. That's fair for sure. It would just be really, because in my lifetime, I can't remember a player. I don't think there's been a player going back to Mike Bibby, Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, Jared Bayless. I mean, heck, Nick Johnson. I can't remember a player that Arizona prioritized that was indigenous to the state of Arizona, not like Ayton, or, I mean, even though Ayton came here, not like that Arizona didn't get. It's a huge thing in that regard. Plus, he's an above the rim guy. I think when it comes to big men, I always like having one or two above the rim players just because I think it makes it so much easier if you've got a shot blocker, or at least somebody that can get in your way. Henry, I think, has shown that. It would be nice because when you look at Townsend and Awaka, as good as Awaka's been, these are still kind of below the rim players. Adding a guy of talent and athleticism, I think, would be key for next season.
All right, so let me ask you something. Would you rather have second-year Carter or freshman Koa Peat?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Second-year Carter.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't, because I kind of already know what I have to a certain degree. And I think here, but although I might be, Koa is an easy guy to project to me. He's an easy guy to put in and say, listen, that guy is going to be 14-7 or whatever the case may be. Carter, though, to me, when you're in that second year, you can almost be an All-American. Now, enough about that. What about you? Who would you prefer?
I mean, listen, I just think back to 2011 Derek Williams. I mean, that's when you see a player make that jump. Now, I know it was probably an aberration, and we won't see that. I mean, yeah, sure, I would love to have both of them. But if you could have Burries as a guard, I mean, Koa, you're right. As a local guy, I'm kind of word salading it here.
Yeah, I get it.
I probably would say I would lean Carter, but you have to have one of the two. Like you can't lose both. And I don't think I would assume, Mike, that you're not going to have both.
It's gonna be difficult. I would say that it's gonna be difficult. But here's what I say though: you've got to get one. You've got to get one. To me, there's no, when you're playing at this level, Arizona's NIL, while it's not like Alabama, is good enough to be able to competitively compete with certain players here and there, because it's not like football. I think that's something where people also mess up a little bit. Yes, there are some schools that can pay $3 million or whatever, but when you're dealing with 12 players, it's a lot easier to be able to massage things when you're dealing with a roster of 85 players, so it's a little bit different in that regard. You got to get one though. And my opinion, you got to get one.
Who do you think Arizona sits better with right now, as of today?
Well, right now, and again, I don't know. There might be somebody on the staff that might not like me said. They feel good about Burries right now. Burries,
okay.
Yeah, Burries feel pretty good about Koa. Now, again, they want to get both, obviously, because I mean, you get 2 5-star kids, and then you also have Aristod that, we haven't, it's kind of gone under the radar and all this, and he's a top 30 player to begin with.
Sure.
I think you start to alleviate some of the domestic high school recruiting concerns, but you got to get them, though. At the end of the day, you got to get one of the two. And if you get one of the two, then I think you're in pretty good shape going forward for next year. I'm the same way as you. I always look towards next year. I remember back in 96, 97, my whole thing was, especially when they're struggling down the stretch against Cal and Stanford, I'm thinking, all right, well, we got everybody back next year. That's when you make that championship run. But I think what you also find out, too, is that, tomorrow is really promised to nobody or no team.
Sure.
That team won the championship. The team got blasted in the Elite Eight the following season. So, but I'm the same way. I love looking ahead towards next year. That's always just kind of been, something that I've thought. Let me ask you this. Jaden Bradley. What is your take on Jaden Bradley? This is Tommy Lloyd's obviously 4th year here. Compare and contrast. And what do you think about Jaden Bradley and Arizona point guard play the last 10 years or so?
All right. Jaden Bradley, to me, is a great 2-guard in the system.
Right.
But I'm not as comfortable with him as a primary ball handler on this team. And I think you've said that similarly as well. That's why Arizona needs to bring in a point guard, and that's what I miss. Kirk Kriisa was what he was, but he's a primary ball handler. Same with Boswell. He was what he was, but I trusted those guys handling the ball more than I trust Jaden Bradley. I love Bradley's defense. I love the fact how he gets steals. He's kind of an all-around player, which is great. But I'd like to see him at the 2, which is what Tommy recruited him as to begin. I mean, the original plan was to have Boswell as the 1,
right?
And then I believe, and then obviously things
for sure.
Changed in the last year. So I like Jaden Bradley. I think Jaden Bradley next year is going to take another step forward as the guy on this roster without Caleb. He's going to be relied on more for his scoring, I think, than he is this year with Caleb gone next year. But, to me, I want Arizona to bring in a point guard. I think that's really important.
And you know what I think Jaden becomes at that point? I totally agree. Jaden becomes kind of a force multiplier at that point.
Yeah.
In that Jaden does everything. If you allow Jaden to take on that role, He can lock up the other team's best player a lot of time, the best guard, obviously defensively. He can also he can become that secondary ball handler where it's a lot easier to rack up assists. You don't have people. I mean, there's games this year where he's being trapped, at half court and at, turnovers and whatnot. And I think he becomes an even better scorer at that point because there's a little bit less pressure on him. But a senior year Jaden Bradley, where you're flanked by a Braden Burries and a Carter Bryant, perhaps, or a KJ Lewis, all of a sudden he becomes even better and more dynamic because he can really focus on what he has to do. And like you said, as good as he is, I love Jaden Bradley. He's my favorite player on the team. He's still, you can tell, he's not a natural point guard. I mean, we've seen, you and I were blessed enough to grow up watching Mike Bibby, who was the consummate point guard. We've seen, you know what it looks like, and I think you either have it or you don't. Jaden's a winning basketball player, a big-time, he's a big-time player. I just think in that role, as that secondary ball handler, he becomes even bigger.
Well, I agree. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, I expect to see a jump next year. I thought Pelle Larsson would take that more of a jump forward. I thought Dalen Terry, if he had stayed, was going to take that jump forward. I think Jaden Bradley could become the guy next year if, the roster shakes out as you and I have discussed. Now, with that said about this year, and I know we're jumping ahead, everything like that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty excited. Look at a team, look at NC State last year. They were one shot away from being out of the ACC tournament. They win that game against Virginia. They win the ACC tournament and make the Final Four. So why not Arizona? Now, on paper, is it a Final Four team? Probably not. Right. But we know this tournament is so fluky, Mike. We know how this goes.
And we've seen fluke. And to give you an idea about fluke and the NCAA tournament and what we've been through, one of my biggest pet peeves, and yes, technically it's true, and it drives every Arizona fan crazy, is not being to the Final Four in 24 years. If you look at it though, the string of luck. And so generally, if you don't go to the tournament or if you don't make a Final Four in 24 years, you probably had a really dark period for a long, long time. Arizona's got 5 Elite Eights in there with a margin of loss of 3.1 points. I mean, these are all nail biters, and Arizona was just very unlucky on them. You think back to Kansas in 03 or obviously Illinois in 05, the 3 Sean Miller teams. They've knocked on the door. You've got something like 8 top 10 finishes. So it's a very unusual situation because generally if you're knocking on the door that many times, but at the end of the day, we haven't been to a Final Four. And I know that's what that's what drives people up a wall. And I think Tommy bears a little bit of the brunt of some of those frustrations. But I bring that up though, because Arizona now, the thing with Tommy Lloyd that I think so many people were upset about was they're like, oh, well, he starts off fast and then they kind of peter off. Eric, this has been the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of changed it. By the way, I want to get back to the Final Four thing for a second. I think you can blame. I think Shear is my age, and I think I had a class with Shear way back in the day. You can blame the two of us. We were the first class. Class of 2005 was the first class that did not get to that did not see a Final Four at Arizona since 1980.
Since 1983, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
When we were born, So I mean, blame Shear and me for that one.
Yeah.
Listen, of course. Yeah. I mean, the turnaround that we've seen from Arizona, this team that couldn't finish games, that was losing in the Bahamas. By the way, I'd never go to the Bahamas again. Literally, future Wildcat coaches, TJ McConnell, when you're coaching Arizona,
don't do
20 years from, don't go to the Bahamas ever again. Yes. Get rid of that. When you watch that team, they just weren't finishing. And you watched them against Cincinnati and West Virginia, and they weren't finishing. The last 3 games, I mean, Iowa State really lucky. That team finished. Yeah. That team in overtime last Monday was big time. Ended on an 11-0 run against ASU. ASU was in the game. Arizona said, nope, this is our game, and made Bobby Hurley freak out like a little girl. And then you had, last night, BYU had a lid on the basket for the last 7 minutes. But it was great Arizona defense. This I love to see. This shows an improving team. And listen, I know we all want to bash Tommy for this, that, and the other. He's doing a great job.
He is doing a good job. Now, another thing that's doing a good job. Let's say that you're looking for some financial advice. I'm telling you what, Long view, my friend. Take the long view. Our good friend Andre Veris runs this. And again, I cannot endorse this, but I can strongly recommend Andre Veris. Tailored retirement strategies, distinctive wealth management solutions, all kinds of good stuff. Andre is a big fan of the show. Andre, when I was at 1290, used to bring us beer that Kevin would end up drinking all of it. I got none of it, but at the same time, he's a highly qualified with top designations. Check it out. Certified financial planner. You will thank me later. We very much like long view insurance and investments on this show. And RJ's Frozen Cactus. If you watched Bar Rescue, you've seen this. You've seen this place. Now, here's a great deal about it. 100+ craft beers at $2 deals. Not a bad seat in the house. It's not one of these places you got to go in there and then you look at there's got some little TV in the corner flickering off and on with the rabbit ears or whatever. This is a big time setup. They got a massive parking lot. You can go there pregame and then go to the game, ride share back. Check it out. Again, RJ's Frozen Cactus from Pizza to Prime Rib. They got you covered. Check it out. Okay. Arizona now, going forward then, you're 10-1 in conference play. What is best case scenario for Eric Cohen? What do you look for as far as an NCAA seed? Do you even care about the NCAA seed because it hasn't really mattered in the past at times?
Yes, I'm going to tell you what I want for an NCAA seed, and you're going to think I'm crazy for this. I either want a 3 or a 6.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to go down to a 7, but you don't want to be on the 4 or 5 line. I don't want to have to think about a 1 seed in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's my whole thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you want to try to avoid the Dukes and the Auburns if you can. I think and Houston. Yeah. I think everyone else outside of those 3 and I mean, I know Houston lost the other day to Texas Tech, but I still think the rest of the teams out there, I don't see anyone that I'm like, oh my God, this is a team that's a world beater. Tennessee, Florida,
I'll take on any of those teams if I got to. Yeah,
I would too. With a Caleb Love that gets hot. Yes. All right, so let's break down the rest of the schedule here. I think they beat Texas Tech. Kansas State's playing well, but let's say Arizona beats them. I don't think they beat Houston. At Baylor is going to be tough. So that'd be 2-2 in this scenario. BYU and Utah, you go 4-2. At Iowa State, I don't think you beat that. 4-3. ASU 5-3. At Kansas, let's say 5-4. So you end up 15-5 in conference. I would say that is excellent. Arizona does not have to play. Their first game would be Thursday instead of Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is a big advantage as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. So 15-5, I'd be happy at this point. Anything less than that, anything more than that, I'm going, all right, that's
15-5, I'm hoping for 16-4 because that would mean that obviously you are too, but I mean, heck, we're hoping for 19-1. But where I'm at though is if you can do that, then I think if you get to that stage, then I think you're kind of, all right, you probably got another win that you maybe shouldn't have. Texas Tech's going to be another big one though. Listen, if you beat Texas Tech, now you got 2 really, really good home wins on the resume. Because I'll be honest with you, I was thinking Tommy Lloyd. I'm like, this guy's got to be the coach of the year, right? And then somebody mentioned Texas Tech's coach, and I'm like, oh yeah. He's awesome. So, and Texas Tech's good. I mean, you watch him against Arizona, and maybe in hindsight, that showed how good Arizona was, that they were only down 3 or 4 points with 5 minutes left before they just collapsed. But Tech, what are you looking for in that game?
I mean, I'm looking for Arizona to just play an all-around game. I mean, this was and I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but Mike, I mean, you think about back to that game in Lubbock. Arizona was down, 5 with a 3-pointer to get it within 2. Yeah. ADO misses it, and then Arizona doesn't score the rest of the game, and they go on an 11-0 run to end the game. So the score was not indicative of the way that game was played. Right. You look at Texas Tech's wins this year. I mean, outside of beating Houston, which is a huge win on the road, right, I don't believe they've beaten a ranked team the rest of the year.
Right.
I just want to say, so we want to talk about Arizona.
You want to see a little more. You want to see a little more.
I mean, okay, so they lost to Iowa State by 1 at home. Okay, fair. But outside of that, and I know they've won 7 in a row, but outside of the Houston win, which is arguably a phenomenal win, I'm not overly impressed with their body work. Arizona has to win this game.
Yeah, I would agree.
And from a betting perspective, I'm going to look at this in Arizona and over because you saw the game was a big under last time. We know Texas Tech can score. The over-under should be probably in the upper 140s. I see Arizona winning this game by 4 to 6 points would be my guess.
I think at that stage, then you look at it, you're 11-1 at that point. Then Arizona, I think you're probably squarely in at that 4 line. But I'm with you though. I want to get into that 3 line. If I don't want any part of the 4. If you can get me, I'll rather be a 6, and I'd rather
or a 3.
Or a 3, because if I'm a 3. Or if I'm a 3, I'm end up playing somebody like I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Iowa State. I mean, that's a bad example. You wouldn't play them most likely, but somebody like that. I just don't want any part of Duke. I don't want any part of Auburn. Everybody else I'll deal with. Like you said, Tennessee, cool, whatever. I'll deal with all those.
All right. So, Mike, let me ask you: do you think Arizona has any chance at a 2? Like realistically?
It's funny. We're debating that on the post game. I do. Now, if you go, let me ask you this. Tell me if I'm wrong. If Arizona goes. And I realize this is highly unlikely, but it is what it is. If Arizona goes 17-3 in the Big 12, let's say you go 7-2 down the stretch. Let's say your losses are, let's say that you lose 2 of the 3. Obviously, you might lose all 3 of Kansas, at Iowa State, at Kansas, and Houston at home. Don't you have to be a 2 seed if you were to somehow go 17-3?
Yeah, but can you have a team with 8 losses as a 2 seed?
No, I mean, right?
Or 9 losses if they don't. You would probably have to win the Big 12 tournament, right? Like that's.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But 8 losses in that scenario, do you see that as a 2? Like, has there ever been? And I don't know the historic precedent there. That seems like a lot of losses for a 2 seed.
I'm trying to think. I know that the 01 team had did they have 7 losses going into it? Might have been 6. That's the only one that's honestly, it's a good point. You've got so many losses, and the selection committee also says that they don't look at I think it would help Arizona's case a lot more if they still looked at your the last part of the season or whatever.
Sure.
But according to the selection committee, they don't look at that anymore. It's just your total body of work. So if they're really doing that, then it's probably off the table.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Can you leave out the Big 12 regular season and tournament champions from the 2 line? No, you can't. So I guess that's probably the only scenario if Arizona wins outright the Big 12 championship regular season and then wins the conference tournament. You have to put them on the 2 line. You can't put Houston, who didn't win either, that far ahead of Arizona, right?
I do believe though that you'd have to win the conference tournament for that to happen, though. Yeah, okay. I believe you'd have to scale that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the lineup that I think was clearly and what happened. Now, first of all, Trey Townsend, we certainly hope he's well. There is, there's no doubt about that. By all accounts, good kid. But man, when he's not on the court, it's just Arizona's just better, man. I don't know how to say it without Arizona's just better. And you saw it last night with Carter, with Henry. The thing that Trey doesn't give you, and why it feels like you're playing 4-on-5, is he doesn't rebound, he doesn't really score, and he's just kind of there. Like, those other dudes are difference makers. I think that's kind of where we're at with this one.
He's mid-major soft. I mean, I hate to say it. Yeah. I mean, he's a fine player. Like, when you notice Trey Townsend, when does he have his best games? Who does he have his best games against? The teams that aren't that great. Yeah, right. For sure. So that's why, I mean, he dominated Oakland. So we're looking, and great, that conference is what it is. And they went and they beat Kentucky. Basketball, as we know, is a fluky game where, one game in Kentucky was, overrated probably. And that was what it was. Trey should not be starting. Trey should not be playing more than 20 minutes. But Tommy, to his credit, has figured this out. Yeah. Trey has not played in big spots against, and same with Del Orso. They have not played in big spots the last 3 games, and Arizona is 3-0 for a reason.
You know where what surprises me the most about Townsend is that I thought he would at least be a rebounder. I thought that he would be able to. Yeah, he is. But I mean, I fell into the trap looking at it against, Kentucky. He has 11 rebounds against NC State. He has 17 or whatever the case may be. I fell into that trap. But the problem is if you're too small and you don't have a motor, you're not going to, and that's the big thing too, is that he just doesn't have a motor. I mean, and I think that's the part that's been the most disappointing for me about all of this, is that I can deal with you if you're just not that good. It's hard for me though, if I don't think you're giving the full effort out there. Like Tobe Awaka will never play in the NBA, but guess what? Maybe he will at this point,
I mean, he's got a lot of time to develop though, Mike.
Yeah. I mean,
he's got 3 years to develop. Like,
His effort though is through the roof. That is the one thing that you can't, and you see it. He's always around, and with Trey, it's just not there. It just don't.
No,
it's just not there.
Yeah, but Walker's also what 6 inches taller than Trey. Realistically,
right. Yeah.
5-6 inches taller than Trey is. I agree though. The effort, and you were on him. I'm sitting at the arena on Saturday, and I look at my phone for my tweets, and there you're banging on Townsend, and you had a video of him not hustling.
Yeah. I mean, he's just that's unacceptable to me. And if you look at the previous, a guy on the message boards made this point too. If you look at the previous play too, he's just standing there as the rebound's taken. Bashir Jihad goes running up and down the court, and Townsend's like, well. Now, to Tommy's credit, like you said, he was out after that, and he didn't come back in for the next 10 minutes. But more so about the other guys. The other guys give you something though. Carter, you see it. Now Carter's going to do some dumb things. He's a hacker. He commits some really dumb fouls.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
I can live with it though. He shoots threes, he blocks shots, he's getting better. You see Henry, we've already talked about that, what Tobe brings. All those guys bring something that impacts in a positive way. And I just think it's hard as the season goes on to have somebody out for 20, 25 minutes that just doesn't really impact the game in positive ways.
The thing about Henry that was really interesting to me is the other day he got posterized, right? I was sitting behind the basket, and what was an acquaintance postered him right there. And it was like, oh my God. Henry came back and had 2 thunderous jams later in the game. So it kind of fired him up.
Yeah.
Some guys would just kind of like, I'm done. I mean, Henry, I think, is the biggest surprise on this team, and you've talked about it by far. I mean, we didn't expect anything, and this guy is a baller.
I also didn't see him having the toughness that he has. I mean, because like you said, I think that's indicative, especially in this day and age where everyone's like, oh, I just got dunked on. I need to go hide in the corner now or whatever. Great players don't get dunked on. He came right back down and had 2 more dunks on people. And you know what else I like too? When he's getting the ball around the basket, and this has driven me up a wall with some other guys like a Ballo and some other players in the past. When he gets the ball around the basket, he's trying to dunk it. And I love when that happens because good things generally happen. You either get fouled or you dunk the ball. Whereas if you try to flip it up or do the little layup, you miss it. You're trying to do body English.
You're talking about Krivas. You're talking about Mo Krivas, who I've seen one dunk in 1.5 years of Arizona basketball.
Exactly. I don't care if he's 7'3", if he's still going to be trying to finish like he's 6'6". Henry, though, is finishing like he's like, all right, I'm taking this rim down with me. I love seeing that.
Love it. 100% with you. Yeah, the difference in physicality between Henry and Krivas is significant. And I hope Mo Krivas watching this, if he comes back to Arizona, which I hope he does, to put him and Henry, in some kind of rotation. I hope Krivas says, I got to be more aggressive because what Henry's doing is working.
Yeah, 1,000%. And he's just playing through everything. It looks good. It's cool to see, man. It's just cool to see. Let me ask you this about ASU. You were at that game. This to me felt, and I have no insight on this. This to me though felt like the end of the Hurley era. I just don't, and I could be wrong. But I just don't know how you bring him back after that, and the fact that like his post-game presser, he's like, I don't know anymore. Like, I'm just trying to find out. In this last one, if you're going to stink or be 500, you also don't want to be getting headlines for how you're acting on the court. I just don't know that the reward is. I just don't know that it's worth it.
I thought watching it in person and watching whatever that was at the end of the game, which was a complete and utter embarrassment for ASU. I thought this is it for Bobby Hurley. And if I was Graham Rossini, I would have cut the cord right then and there. I agree. I guess they didn't because you had a 3-day turnaround. But right now it's a perfect day to get rid of Bobby Hurley. Last night you start out 18-2, and you lose to a bad Kansas State team.
And they shot 29 threes with 16 minutes left in the game. They're just.
Yeah, Hurley, I guess, one of my ASU buddies was texting me last night telling me, I guess Hurley came out and told the team, like, we're not going to shoot more than like 24, 25 threes in the game. Right. And they did that all in the first half. Right. This is an undisciplined. And the thing is, ASU's talented. You can't.
They are.
I mean, every year, it's the same thing that I talk about with my ASU buddies. And I'm sure you do the same with ASU folks that like, he brings in the talent. That's not the problem.
Right.
He has the people on that team. Problem is, they're so poorly coached. Every single year, Rossini's got to cut the cord there. Enough is enough.
And the problem is, I don't care anymore about you. They will never get better. That is the point. There's always going to be a limit to how good they can be. You brought in 2 5-star kids this year, and you got some pretty decent role players around there. I always make this point. If Tommy Lloyd was the ASU coach, well, they'd be significantly better than Arizona State.
Well, look at developing players. Yes. Developing player. Who at ASU that you say, wow, that player has gotten better under Bobby Hurley?
No, none. Nobody. I can't think of anybody. And and then you watch it too, and just the way that he melts down. Also, when you're coaching 17, 18, 19-year-olds and you see your coach, the one that you're answering to every day, just going crazy. When you're an adolescent and you're seeing that, you're going to lose your cool at times too, because you just don't have anybody. To me, it's an embarrassment. I get why you may be stuck with him, because you're like, well, he can bring in some talent. It's a fun style. But, man, I agree with you. You got to cut that cord, and you got to start letting people know that, hey, we're going to be looking for a new coach. I don't know what else.
And the other thing is, how's he going to bring guys back? And you know the situation more than I do about the athletic department with the whole documentary or whatever that they were going to do that got scrapped. Like, how's Hurley going to afford to pay these guys? Yeah, how are you going to get – you think Sandin's going to stay? You think Quainton's going to stay? No, they're not going to.
Well, what's wild too about it is that we started getting rumors down here, and they throughout that. I mean, Quainton's dad was he was telling anybody that would listen. It wasn't a secret that his kid that he wasn't getting paid on time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's why he had to put out the tweet a few days later saying, they've gone above and beyond. Well, generally, if they've gone above and beyond, that doesn't come out of nowhere. And we had a bunch of people saying that, and so you had boosters that picked it up, obviously, but. That's in this day and age, though, that's also toxic, though. When kids are getting paid, if there's rumors going around that you come here and you're not getting paid, that's not what anybody's looking to hear. Five of Kind Media said, so is ASU looking at Bennett from St. Mary's?
Be a great hire.
First of all, he'd be a great hire. I don't know that I'm taking that job, though.
Here's the thing. I think you almost have to at that point if the money is there. I mean, I know I don't want to go off on a tangent about football, but I was talking to a local broadcaster in Arizona the other day that I hadn't seen in a while. And I was talking to Craig Fooey from ABC 15. I don't know if you know the name.
I know of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about Jedd Fisch and Jedd took the money. If you get paid twice your salary, we're all going to take it. Yeah. I know we didn't like the way it happened, and we all agree on that, but you're going to take the money. If Randy Bennett, I don't know what he's making at St. Mary's, but it can't be more than $1.5-2 million.
Right.
ASU offers him 4 or more.
Oh, yeah, then you got to take it.
You got to take.
I agree.
It doesn't matter if it's a crappy job. Yeah.
I am curious how much he makes. That's somebody look that up in the comments if you would. But he'd be perfect. He's also a Mesa native. He's from the state of Arizona, obviously. The thing with Jedd Fisch that always just cracks me up. If Jedd Fisch had just said, man, Washington's a better job. It is a better job. There's no doubt about it across the board. It's a better job. But
okay, fine. So and I agreed, and I love kind of the way you play off the Jedd Fisch thing with the smelly, rainy Seattle. That it's funny how you've done. Jedd, listen, what Jedd did here was phenomenal, and yes. I know we just kind of turned there a little bit into football, and I get it, but you don't turn down that money. It's the way he did it, and the way he took all these guys. Now he took Manu, he took Takario Davis, Demond Williams. That's what drives me up a wall, is that Arizona could have been ridiculous. I mean, imagine Demond Williams platooning with Noah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, this team would have been insane.
It would have been unreal. I mean, there's no other way. All right, now you're right. $950K base for Bennett. Yes, you take that job if it's offered.
If they offer him $3.5 million,
you have to take it. Yeah. I mean, anytime they triple your salary, and you absolutely have to take that. Let's talk a little bit of football, because we are also a football school as well. Mm-hmm. But first, Eris Dental, my friend, Eris Dental. All right, our good buddy Lan Allen, he was out there traveling with the team. Check out Eris Dental. The great thing about it too is it is all necessary care. They're not going to go in there and remove your tongue or your gums or whatever. They're not going to do any of that. They are only going to give you necessary care and dental implants. Who doesn't want dental implants that don't cost $88,000? I know my mom wishes she had those. Now, again, check it out. all kinds of different spots. They got 3 different locations, and again, dental implants at affordable prices. Also, if you lose your retainer, if you lose your mouth guard, you are good to go because they will have it much cheaper than everybody else. Eris Dental, check it out. Thank you. Check it out. Also, HVAC time, baby. Come on, Comfort X gonna give it to you. Now, free routine maintenance for first-time clients. Yeah, a number of people from the show have gone there and gotten quotes from our guy, and it sounds like he's doing a good job. I've gotten very good reports back. Built on trust for the long haul, perfect track record, residential and commercial HVAC expertise at affordable prices. Comfort X HVAC, again, small business with big savings. This is the guy to go to. Trust me on that. Comfort X, a small business with big savings. All right, Eric, I want to talk to you about Arizona football now. And you, I'm not breaking any news because you put it in the notes. You will be giving up your tickets.
Yeah, so I've driven down to every Arizona football game, and I can tell you since 2000, I've had season tickets since 2006. I've driven down for every game. I missed one in 2007, and I missed one in the Cal game in 2021 when I had COVID, so I couldn't go to that one.
Right.
But everybody
else had COVID in that game. Arizona won that game because of COVID.
That's exactly right. Otherwise, Arizona goes 0-12.
Yeah.
But outside of 2020, I've been to every Arizona home football game since 2006.
Right.
At this point, first of all, the game times are too late. I know I'm still going to go to 3 or 4 games regardless.
Right.
And I like sitting in the stands. I'm the type that likes to go and interact with the people that I sit around. I've seen some people that you get used to, your stands friends, So I love that. I just can't justify buying tickets to watch Weber State and not being able to sell it. Who am I going to give those tickets? Even if I gave them to somebody, they're not going to go.
Well, right, exactly. And that to me is still the problem. And again, I do give the staff a lot of credit for being more engaged, a lot more engaged now than they were.
Question.
And I give them a ton of credit for that. But you're also dealing with a massive deficit at this point because now you have I think you came in your last year and I think you had a lot of people that were just excited. That was the time to sell it. Now, with what happened last year, you don't have we talked about margin for error in basketball. You don't have a margin for error. You're going to have to win to get people to come to those games. I've had a ton of people, I'm sure you have as well. I mean, and you're indicative of that. That's why I wanted to bring that up, that you're getting a lot of diehards that are like, man, if you want to bring me back, you got to show me something, because after what I saw last season, time is money. Money is time. And like you said, if you buy those tickets and try to sell them, I don't know that nobody's buying them from you. You got to win, period. That's where I'm at with this now. You got to win.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the problem that I have with it is so I buy season tickets, whatever. And I'm not going to go I don't want to go to Houston at 8:15, or the Houston game at 8:15 on a Friday night. I wasn't going to go. And I just said, and listen, it was a fun game. Arizona won 27-3, and I was thrilled about it. But the fact of the matter is, these TV times are stupid. For me, I don't get home till 2 a.m. It's getting harder to find people to go with me, every time. It used to be fairly easy, whatever, but as people get married, and I know I'm making a laundry list of excuses. It just, I would like to see the athletic department do something to incentivize, people to come to the games that maybe are a little bit more off the beaten path. I don't know what that is. Throw them in for free. Give me something else that's going to entice me to keep my season tickets. Because right now, I can't find it, and I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, and the problem too is that the game day experience the announcers, the microphone, the music, it's all disjointed. It's all terrible.
Listen. Jeff Dean's a buddy of mine, and I.
I don't blame Jeff Dean. I don't blame Jeff Dean at all. That ain't his fault.
Oh no, Jeff. But the DJ needs to. The DJ is the worst. It was better this year, but the guy, I don't remember his name. The guy that Jedd had was terrible.
Yes,
he was terrible.
Yes. Oh, to be very clear, I'm not blaming Jeff Dean at all for that. I'm blaming a lot of people around that. Yeah.
No. Okay, fair. Yeah, I mean, the game day experience isn't great. But what are you enticing me to come down and watch a team that's picked 15th in the Big 12? Yeah. Now the schedule's not bad, and Arizona opens with 5 of their first 6 at home, and I appreciate that. But why am I going to? What's the incentive to buy tickets to watch that? I can just buy singles or buy 2 tickets for whatever games I want, And there's not that much of a demand, right?
Right. And my problem, though, too, is that last year, I've always said this. This is why I have a soft spot for Rich Rod in my heart. If you're going to lose games, at least entertain me. At least be something where it's like, you know what? Yeah, we just lost 56-48, but it was fun. Last year, you were losing games, and it was just dull. It was just hard. Those were hard sit-throughs because I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know. I mean, I don't think anybody knew. Yeah, I mean, offensively, too, I had no clue. It was every now and then throw the ball to T-Mac, and that was kind of it. Now, I will say I am enthused by getting an OC in here that I think has a decent track record for sure. Yeah. And I would love for that to be, the case. I think that was a big thing. Last year, obviously, it was a big swing and a whiff with Babers. I would be surprised if Daggy doesn't have the offense better. It's going to be interesting, though, because, again, the offensive line was obviously a train wreck last year, and you generally don't get better by losing Jonas Savanea, Wendell Moy, and Josh Baker, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out really quickly on that one, I think.
All right, I got a trivia question for you, Mike. You'll like this.
What do you got?
The two best teams in college football against the spread this past season. One was ASU. Mm-hmm. Do you know who the other one was? And why am I asking the question?
I would assume it was Marshall.
It was Marshall, is correct. Yes. Because Seth Daggy, when they had that quarterback, Braylon Braxton, when they put him in, that team covered like 9 straight. Right. So, I mean, they're a team. So Daggy gets it. I mean, this was we talked about Tommy Lloyd making those in-season adjustments. So it's really cool. The Daggy hire I thought was really good. And to get a Mike Leach protege, former Texas Tech quarterback, I love that. Don't get me wrong. But what else is selling me? The talent. I mean, he's brought in some players. I get it. But you're losing 2 first-round picks. You lost a guy in Takario Davis on defense who could have gone in the first round. He kind of regressed. You did keep Genesis Smith and Traden Stukes, and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. You did keep Noah, which is awesome. The wide receivers they brought in are fine. Ismail Mahdi at running back, good stuff. But what's the incentive for fans? Yeah. What are we going to do if I'm in the athletic department? What are we going to do to incentivize people to come to these games?
And honestly, I don't. And it's a great question. I don't think you can. I think that at this stage, what do you got? Because I think you've just got to win.
I think you have to get. I think this is where the Arizona marketing team needs to get creative. Stop. I mean, say, hey, we're going to throw in this game for free. Hey, we're going to give you this. We're going to throw in free part. You're going to take a deficit, but you're not selling concessions from people that aren't in the stadium.
That's
when I'm in the stadium. Sure. So you got to get me in the stadium.
Right.
Then I can buy concessions and that money adds up. So if you throw in a game for free, or if you say, all right, well, we're not going to charge, you're paying for 7 games, or you're paying for 6 games, but we're giving you 7. You're paying for 5 games. We're lowering the prices.
Yeah.
At least you can retain more people. Right. I would consider being retained if they were to do that versus saying, okay, we're going to raise it 10%.
Well, you know what?
It's bad marketing.
Well, right. And you know what it is too? It's also showing good faith. It's saying, listen, we know where we're at. We know what we showed. We really value who you are. Here's what we're going to do for that. Because the worst thing is just not selling them at all. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can raise the prices 20%, but if nobody buys them, then it doesn't matter. Whereas if you, like you said, if you give them a season ticket package and you say, listen, out of loyalty, out of love, we're giving you this game free. Or whatever. I like that. I think, hey, Eric, I was going to say you should maybe get in touch.
I work in marketing. I mean, this is my day job. I work in marketing.
Yeah.
Do you blame me?
No, not at all.
Somebody that lives 2 hours away,
not at all,
for not wanting to renew this year.
And you know what? And you know why you're so important in something like this is that you are going to be around. I tell this people all the time. People like yourself are going to be around way after DRF is here, way after this coaching staff is here. It's you. It's me that they need to be looking at and say, we need to get these people in here because they've been lifelong fans that can literally rehearse the entire roster or recite the entire roster back to the 90s or whatever. Again, it's there. I think there's just this, you've got to consolidate your base first. And you've got to be able to get the people that that you might have lost, like an Eric Cohen, and say, we can't lose. Before we even think about expanding, we've got to be able to circle the wagons on people like yourself.
I'm going to throw out another one for you. Okay. This is another crazy marketing idea. If anyone from Arizona marketing is listening, you're welcome. Give the season ticket holders a voucher each game to use on concessions. If it's $10, if it's $10 per ticket,
right.
At least it's something that's encouraging you to spend more money when you get to the stadium. It's incentivized. If I got that, it's a small gesture, but I knew that I wasn't going to have to pay for my Coca-Cola. Yeah,
Right.
I don't, because I got to drive back. I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't have to. My chicken fingers are only going to be $2.
Right.
That's something that's going to incentivize me for going. This is where I want to see proactive thinking if I'm going to keep these tickets as somebody that's driving back and forth.
And it shows you that they're operating in good faith. That is the at least not necessarily good faith, but they're at least showing that, hey, we know the situation here. We're limited in what we can do, but here's what we at least acknowledge this, as opposed to just saying, you know what, we're raising the prices 20%. Deal with it. Well, I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to watch it, or I'm not going to go.
If I lived in Tucson, I would go to every game. I don't care how terrible they are. I'm still going to every game.
Right.
It's harder. I mean, going to these night games, going to these basketball games, Mike, 9 o'clock starts. I mean, what are we, how does this, is it good for the conference when you have your two of your marquee games at 9 o'clock, 11 Eastern? It's so stupid. What are we doing?
Especially too, and it's not like it's like ASU and like Colorado that nobody cares about. We're talking marquee games.
Arizona at BYU, I can look at the schedule at the start of the year and say, that's going to be an intriguing game. Iowa State at Arizona, I could say, that's intriguing. So let's put it at 11 o'clock Eastern on a Monday night. What the heck kind of sense does that make? From the TV partners, it's baffling.
Now, Five of Kind Media says another one. First thousand and to enter the game, get a free T-shirt and voucher. Things like that. Incentivize it.
See, I'm not one as somebody that, has gone to games, whatever. The bobblehead, you got to get there. I'm at the age where I don't care about that. Right. Give me something while I'm at the game. Give me a voucher that I get, on my phone that I can scan that gets me money off at the concession stand. That will keep me going. Give me free parking. Give me, why is every season ticket holder not getting some kind of parking?
Right. I totally agree. And the fact is too, you got to pay for it. And it's, and it's not like they're not putting up new parking garages all throughout the campus. I mean, heck, I see it every day.
No, I mean, I used to like to park on University. Now I park near the student union. Okay, fine. But it's $15 to park, Mike. If they gave that to me for free and I'm like, hey, all I have to do is pay for gas or whatever when I drive down. Right. No big deal. So this is what I just want to see this athletic department think. I want somebody to do something different here because your team, on paper, not very good.
Yeah, that's the way to put it. Now, one other thing that is good, though, we need to talk about Swift Mortgage and the Michael Rubin Group. That is good. All right, here's the deal. He can help. This guy's the man. He can do everything that I don't know how to do. He can help buy, sell, or refinance your house. Debt consolidation, local to Tucson. And the great thing about him, too, is he's a diehard. This guy's great. Every week, he sends me a new code word, and it's always like a player that I either couldn't stand or never played. Ed Stokes, the king of missed dunks at the U of A. I've never seen somebody miss more dunks than Ed Stokes, but guess what? You can get $500 off using his name. Again, all this stuff, he can do the shopping for you. He's a broker, so he's got better rates. He's got access to banks, all of that stuff. And again, local to Tucson, long-term U of A guy. By the way, Dennis Walsh says code word Joe Turner. I believe that he did have Joe Turner, one of the first ones. And if not, it was in there. Either way, Michael Rubin, Swift Mortgage, Rubin Group, check him out. All right, Eric, let me ask you this, though. So now, the state of Arizona athletics overall, and when I say the state of it, we're the revenue sports. Where do you view the state of Arizona basketball? Where do you view the state of Arizona football, and where we are going forward?
I think you'll agree with me on this, and I think some people won't get it. In the comments will probably call me an idiot, and that's not.
I get called that every day. It's fine.
Yeah, so do I. So no big deal. Football is what matters. Football pays for your other sports. And it's simple math problem. If you had 7 games and you were to sell 50,000 tickets per game, that's 350,000 tickets.
Right.
For McHale Center, you have 15 home games at 14,000 tickets?
It's math.
It's what? That's 210,000. So you're selling 140,000 less tickets for basketball, and you can't make up that price difference. You need your football team to be good. That is where Arizona needs to give all the resources, and they've made progress over the years, but I want to see more. So we need to sell out that stadium. Yeah. We need to find the athletic department needs to do something different to sell out that stadium. Basketball, I think, is in a fine place. Women's basketball, Adia, the offense is what it is, but Adia is still a great coach. And I mean, Do I think she's a lifer here anymore? Probably not. I think if she gets offered some money somewhere else, would I blame her? No. Has she plateaued? Maybe. I want to see what's going to happen with the offense. Baseball, I mean, I know you just had Chip Hale on. I've been a Chip Hale basher because he doesn't win in the postseason, but what he did in the Pac-12 last year, nothing I can say. So, and they're projected to be pretty good this year, so I'll give them props. And I think Caitlin Lowe's fine. You can't expect the Mike Candrea approach where he was winning everything. It's a different time these days. It's all about football. You have to have you have to make a bowl game every single year or 5 out of 7 years. You cannot have 4-8 seasons. You just can't have.
You can't, and you can't be known. And the biggest problem too is that you can't let apathy. I would much rather have a fan base that's mad than a fan base that doesn't care. Because if you have a fan base that doesn't care, that's almost impossible to get back. And again, this is Arizona football at the end of the day. It's not like you're going to say, well, you know what? We got 10 5-star kids going, just coming up here. It's going to be it's a different sell. And conversely, you look at up at ASU and what's going on with Dillingham, and it's like, I mean, that thing's going right there. You got to figure it out if you're Arizona.
So I had a friend yesterday that was in the Bay Club at the Phoenix Open, and Kenny's there showing off recruits or whatever. And but I mean, that's what you got to do. Kenny gets it. I mean, by the way, I told you this, but Kenny's brother was my high school classmate at Chaparral, and he's a U of A guy, and he's a big U of A guy. So I don't even know that he roots for his brother. And I haven't talked to him in a couple of years since Kenny got hired. Right. But I think he still backs the A. I'll tell you that.
That's all we want, my man. Eric, this has been a privilege, my guy. We'll definitely get you on a consistent basis. Now, where can they find you? Where can they find the pod?
Hey, check out Wildcat Country, same place, YouTube. We'll record it tonight. I mean, you come to this podcast right now with Mike and Sheer. They give you news. They give you reaction. For me, it's like a therapy. I'm just giving my thoughts on things. Listen, you guys are the top Arizona podcast for a reason. I appreciate it. I get my news from you. Keep up the great work. Thank you for having me on. But check out, Shane Dale and myself on Wildcat Country. Yes. We have a good time. You want to call me an idiot in the comments? I probably deserve it. I've had some bad takes, but hey, we have a good time with it.
At the end of the day, I always tell people this is the toy section of society. We're all people we're fans with mics at the end of the day. That's what this all comes down to. Eric, this has been a privilege, my man, and we'll get you on again soon, buddy.
Likewise, Mike. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, can I get a back the A?
Back the A. Let's go.
Yes. I hope somebody sees that's a friend of yours that doesn't like that term. That's what I want to say. This was a privilege, my man, and we will talk with you soon. For Eric Cohen, I am merely Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ12 podcast.